I learned very early that love in my marriage came with conditions, and most of them were set by my mother-in-law. From the outside, our home looked warm. A two-story house, family photos lining the walls, the smell of spices always lingering in the air. But behind those walls, I lived like a guest who had overstayed her welcome. Every step I took felt like an apology. Every breath felt borrowed. My mother-in-law, Margaret, never raised her voice at me. She didn't need to. Her power lived in size, in narrowed eyes, in the way she would wipe a chair after I stood up, as if my presence left a stain. She mastered the art of humiliation disguised as concern. "You must be tired," she'd say while handing me more chores. "You cook differently, not wrong, just strange," she'd add, smiling sweetly in front of guests, and everyone believed her kindness. Everyone except me. I tried. God knows I tried. I woke up before sunrise to prepare breakfast exactly how she liked it. No salt until the end. Tea brewed for exactly 4 minutes. I folded laundry her way, cleaned the kitchen twice a day, and kept my voice soft even when my chest felt like it was caving in. What hurt more than her cruelty was my husband's silence. Daniel was kind when we were alone, but the moment his mother entered the room, he became a boy again. Obedient, quiet, afraid to choose. I waited for him to defend me just once, to say my name with strength, but hope is exhausting when it's always one-sided. Margaret reminded me daily that I was replaceable. "You should be grateful," she PHYSICS once said while inspecting the living room. Not everyone gets lucky marrying into stability. Lucky. I had given up my job, my apartment, my independence to support Daniel while he built his career. I believed in us, but in her eyes I wasn't a partner. I was a burden that came free with her son. Family dinners were the worst. She'd tell stories about Daniel's exes, successful, elegant women who knew how to behave. Then she'd glance at me and say, "But life teaches us lessons, doesn't it?" Everyone laughed. I smiled. At night, I stared at the ceiling and wondered how someone could make you feel invisible while standing right in front of you. The breaking point didn't come suddenly. It arrived slowly, layered insult by insult, until my heart grew heavy with words I never said. I told myself things would change, that if I tried harder, loved quieter, endured longer, she'd accept me. I was wrong. Some people don't want peace, they want power, and Margaret had waited patiently for the day she could remind me exactly where she thought I belonged. I just didn't know yet that her cruelty would come wrapped in black plastic, and that the moment she tried to throw me away would become the moment everything changed. The day Margaret finally broke me began like every other, quiet, tense, and filled with unspoken rules. Rain tapped against the windows as I stood in the kitchen, scrubbing the same spot on the counter for the 3rd time. My hands ached, but stopping felt dangerous. Margaret believed idle hands invited trouble, especially mine. I could hear her footsteps behind me, slow and deliberate, as if she wanted me to feel her presence before I saw her. "You missed a corner," she said flatly. I turned, apologizing before she could finish the sentence. She didn't respond. Instead, she walked past me, opened the back door, and disappeared into the garage. I waited, heart pounding, unsure of what offense I had committed this time. When she returned, she was holding a large black trash bag. It was tied tightly at the top, stretched and heavy. Water dripped from the plastic onto the floor, leaving dark stains behind her steps. Something about the way she held it like a verdict made my stomach twist. She stopped in front of me. "I've been meaning to clean up," she said. "There are things in this house that don't belong." My chest tightened. Daniel was at work. No witnesses, no protection. She raised the bag and shoved it into my arms. The weight surprised me. I nearly dropped it. "Take it." She snapped. "It's trash, just like everything else you bring into this family." The words landed harder than the bag itself. I felt my face burn, my ears ring. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Years of swallowed pain pressed against my ribs, begging to be released. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her what I had done to deserve this, but I knew better. Arguing with Margaret was like screaming into a locked room. Only I would hear the echo. "I want it gone today," she continued, crossing her arms, "and take your things with it if you need to. I won't have useless clutter under my roof. Useless." I nodded slowly, my fingers dug into the plastic, my nails pressing so hard they hurt. I refused to cry. "Not here, not in front of her." As I turned toward the door, she added casually, "You should be thankful. I'm generous. Some women get nothing when they're thrown out. Thrown out." I stepped outside into the rain. The cold soaked through my clothes instantly, but I welcomed it. It numbed something inside me that had been screaming for years. I didn't look back. If I had, I might have fallen apart. I carried the bag to my car and placed it in the trunk like it was radioactive. My hands shook as I closed it. I didn't know why, but something about the bag felt wrong, too heavy, too deliberate. I drove away without a destination, tears finally blurring the road. At a red light, I whispered to myself, "This is not my home anymore." By the time I reached the small apartment I'd rented months earlier just in case, I was exhausted in every way a person can be exhausted. I dragged the bag inside and dropped it onto the floor. It landed with a solid, unmistakable thud. Trash didn't sound like that. I stared at it for a long time, my heart pounding, fear and curiosity twisting together. Slowly, with trembling hands, I reached for the knot at the top of the bag. And in that moment, I had no idea that Margaret's cruelest act was about to become the most faltering gift I would ever receive. I sat on the floor staring at the trash bag as if it might explode. The room was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the uneven rhythm of my breathing. Every instinct told me to leave it alone, to walk away and forget the entire day. But something heavier than fear kept me rooted in place. The sound it made when it hit the floor replayed in my mind, solid, intentional, not garbage. With trembling fingers, I untied the knot. The plastic peeled open, releasing not the smell of waste, but the faint scent of old paper and dust. I froze. Carefully, I pulled the edges apart and looked inside, my vision blurred. Stacks of cash filled the bag, neatly bundled, layered with precision. Hundreds, thousands, more than my brain could process. I reached in, my hands brushing crisp bills, my pulse roaring in my ears. "This isn't real," I whispered. I counted until my hands began to shake too badly to continue. $500,000. I collapsed back against the wall, breath coming in short gasps. Panic rushed in before joy could catch up. Why was this in my house? Why had Margaret given it to me? Was this a mistake? Or a trap? As I sifted through the money again, something small slipped out and landed near my knee. An envelope. It was old, the paper yellowed and fragile, my name written across the front in careful, familiar handwriting. My heart skipped painfully. I knew that handwriting. It belonged to Robert, my father-in-law. He had been the only one in that family who ever treated me like I mattered. He asked about my dreams, listened when I spoke, defended me quietly when Margaret wasn't around. When he passed away 2 years earlier, something in that house had died with him. I opened the envelope slowly, afraid that whatever was inside would undo me completely. The letter was short, but every word carried weight. "If this reaches you, then I was right about one thing. She would never change." Tears spilled before I could stop them. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you the way you deserved while I was alive. I saw how you were treated. I saw your patience, your kindness, and your pain." My chest tightened. Someone had seen me, truly seen me. "This money is yours, not borrowed, not shared, yours alone. I set it aside for you because I knew you would need a way out one day." I covered my mouth, a sob breaking free. Margaret believes control is love. She believes power makes her right. Let her think that. I left this where only her cruelty could deliver it to you. My hands shook as I reached the final lines. Do not use this to fight her. Use it to free yourself. Live well, that will be enough. The letter slipped from my fingers. All the years I had blamed myself, every insult I internalized. Every moment I thought I wasn't enough collapsed under the weight of the truth. The hatred wasn't about me, it never was. I wasn't trash. I was an exit plan. I laughed through tears, a sound that felt foreign in my throat. Margaret had thrown that bag at me with disgust, never realizing she had handed me my escape. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel like a locked door. It felt like an open road, and I knew then. I wouldn't beg for respect anymore. I would take my dignity, my silence, and my freedom. And when the time came, she would learn that the woman she tried to discard had finally learned her worth. I didn't rush my revenge. That was the most satisfying part. While Margaret believed she had finally put me in my place, I moved quietly, carefully, like someone who had learned that silence could be sharper than shouting. The money stayed hidden, untouched for weeks, as I allowed myself time to think, not with anger, but with clarity. I filed for divorce without warning, no dramatic confrontation, no pleading, just paperwork signed with steady hands. When Daniel called, confused and panicked, I listened without interrupting. He asked what he had done wrong. I told him the truth, that doing nothing had been his greatest choice. Margaret didn't take the news well. She showed up at my apartment uninvited, eyes blazing, voice trembling with disbelief. You think you can leave and take my son with you? She demanded. I smiled, not cruelly, but calmly. I'm not taking anything, I said. I'm just finally leaving. She laughed then, sharp and mocking. With what? You have nothing. That was the moment I knew the ending had already been written. The truth came out weeks later, in a lawyer's office filled with tension thick enough to choke on. Documents were placed on the table, Robert's will, sealed accounts, instructions written years before his death. The money, the house, the investments, Margaret's name was missing. Her face drained of color as the realization settled in. Everything she believed she controlled had never truly been hers. The power she clung to so desperately had slipped through her fingers the moment she chose cruelty over kindness. I said nothing. I didn't need to. Watching her unravel was not revenge, it was consequence. Daniel sat frozen, finally understanding the cost of his silence. He reached for my hand once, but I pulled away gently. Love without protection is not love at all. With the inheritance, I rebuilt my life brick by brick. I invested wisely, opened a small business, and surrounded myself with people who spoke softly and listened deeply. My home became a place of laughter, not fear. Peace replaced survival. Sometimes, late at night, I thought about Margaret. I didn't hate her. Hate takes too much energy, and I had already wasted enough on her. Instead, I felt something lighter, release. She had tried to crush me, but all she did was reveal the truth buried beneath her anger. Power without love is empty. Months later, I received a letter. No apology, no warmth, just bitterness folded neatly into paper. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Some stories don't deserve another chapter. The sweetest revenge wasn't wealth or justice or watching her fall. It was waking up every day in a life she never wanted me to have. It was choosing myself without guilt. It was knowing that the woman she called trash walked away with dignity, while she was left holding nothing but regret. And sometimes, when I remember that black trash bag hitting my chest, I smile, because that was the moment everything changed. Not when I was humiliated, but when I was finally free.